Alright, in this video we're going to talk about building your own retro rifle. Not buying one off the shelf complete, actually trying to put something together to create your own retro version of a gun. And maybe save yourself some money. That's probably, that's the main reason why a lot of people do it, okay? But before we get into it, if you would please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, and if you could, become a member. Alright, so, retro guns are expensive. So you'd like to get one, and you do, or in the past you've worked on your AR rifle and maybe have the tools and that to build one. What choices do you have? Okay. Now, in the past, a lot of retro builds were done when parts kits were available. Now, the laws have changed and you really can't get parts kits, but some of them are floating around and were, there. And they went from, I'm talking way back, they weren't that much. It's 200-300 units, I think, for a parts kit. But now, I went and looked. The price of parts kits, I think, without furniture is 7.5 units to 800 units, and a complete one minus the barrel and the lower receiver are over 1K. Alright, so getting parts, or a lot of times guys would just buy the upper receiver, which probably that would be the only thing you need. Everything else is going to kind of be replaced. But even that is difficult, okay? And expensive. And then plus you have a used gun. Like with any surplus item, how used is it, So that's kind of very pricey, but, there are people that's what they want, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. Just personally, to me, way too expensive for what it is. I'd rather have a retro that's new. That's just my personal preference, instead of building on a parts kit. Because there are some things to do it right and do it can get expensive. Alright, so what I did, and like I said, what model do you want? Okay, like the prototype, that's like a modern collectible. Okay, you're not going to replicate that or put that together from parts. Okay, so that's not here. I wanted a 601. At one time, Brownells made 601s. The difference between a 601 and, say, a 604, which H&R does make, are a few points. One is the color of the furniture, the op handle, and I went the long yard with this one. And when you see the video on there, I changed the bolt stop, the mag release button, and several other small little tiny features on here, which just the small little parts, the safety and all this selector, cost me 150 units just for these little details, okay? But what I did is I used a H&R early Air Force upper, changed all the little things I had to do, got a stripped 601 marked receiver, and took it from there, okay? That was one way of doing it, because you can't say, hey, I want a 601. Brownells did make them. You see them come up for sale every now and again, but the asking price, because it's no longer being made, is a little on the high side, But I did splurge and put some money into this build, but I like it, and I wanted as close or as accurate as I could get version of the first model that they were selling, before the government adopted it, which this is. So we'll go on to my next one. This is my A1 build. Now, this is where you have choices. This one is not the gray like it's supposed to be originally. This is the black anodized finish. And the reason I went that way with it is most of the little small bits and pieces that I took out were black anyway. They're not going to be gray, the trigger guard and all this other stuff. So I decided to go black, which is not the correct finish for this gun. Also the barrel. I got an H&R barrel, stripped down barrel, which was just the front sight and the barrel nut with the triangular sheet metal thing that's locked in behind it. Chrome line, and the 1 in 12 was sold out, but they had a 1 in 7 in stock. Now you can get a 1 in 12, but so I said, you know what? I'd like to see how the old sight system works with a 1 in 7 barrel. So I got the 1 in 7 barrel. And this handguard came off the upper that I used to build the other gun. So I had all these spare parts. And I started putting stuff together, and I used the flash hider that came off that 604, which is, not quite correct, but okay. And I had I had a safety lever, I had a bolt catch, the rear takedown pin and that. So I had a whole bunch of spare parts. So I built this one this way. Now, this this gun cost me altogether with spare parts and that, but a rough estimate is 9.5 units, all said and done. That's with parts, pieces, everything. To get a Blem black finish A1, which a friend of mine got, and we'll compare it. A friend of mine seen one of these, had to get one, so I may have a gun to go store-bought off the shelf. A Blem cost 1.2K. All right, to get this built by H&R, and I believe that has a 1 in 12 twist. It's a correct retro copy of an M1A1. So you see there's a bit of a savings, a little bit of a difference. To me, and this is marked, this is H&R lower with marked M16A1. The only difference is the flash hider's off, the twist rate's wrong. I put that little triangle charging handle in there, and that's about it. Other than that, it's just like an M1A1. So again, it's how deep do you want to go? You can find M1A1 copies, okay, that are not quite correct or are built from parts kits. There's Southern Tactical built a bunch of them from parts kits. And you will have the original furniture. There was a point in time when people would sell you the original furniture sets. There was a company that did that till they ran out. Which do look different. The pistol grips, they do have a different look to them than this newer polymer stuff. So you can go that route, and usually all them parts and stuff nowadays are extremely expensive. Okay, but you can save yourself some money. Now, another thing I did, which you could do, is, get an upper, but skip the lower receiver. You could just buy a generic lower with a rifle stock on it. Usually they're A2s. I like going with the A1s. It's the length of pull and that. But here's what I did on the next one. For an XM177, I think it's a E1, not an E2. Brownells had a sale, and there was something with Mr. Guns and Gear. If you used his discount code, what they did is they had a bunch of the uppers complete, and that's a complete upper, okay, which usually runs about, so you had two choices. You had one with the, I think the 10-inch barrel, the flash hider that's not pinned and welded, and a 1-7 twist. Okay, that with the discount, because they wanted to get rid of it, they dropped it to where that cost me 6 to 5 units. Okay, which is usually something like, and that's with shipping and handling. What it did, it dropped it under 6, and paying all this tax, shipping and handling, got it up to about where that's what the list price is. They were sold out of the longer ones that were pinned and welded, that were 1 and 12, that would, constitute a rifle. So I got the upper for 6, and then I think it was $150 to get a PSA pistol lower, because this has to be a pistol build. Pistol lower with the brace that looks like, mimics, it's a little thin blade, but it kind of has the silhouette of the Colt collapsible stock. So actually, like I said, I come out for about 8 beans for a little knockoff that looks good. It's not 100% correct, and the lower receiver is just a generic lower, as compared to paying $1,200 for to get that same pistol from H&R with the markings and all that other stuff. So if you're doing that, and there are several people out there that kind of built something that looks retro, carry handle A1 style, the sight, but they may put different hand guards on or something, just, and the lowers are just generic lowers that don't have the, markings, property, U.S. government, M16A1 or whatever. So yeah, you can save some money, catch a sale. And another thing, when you go and buy these, like these uppers, stripped, the same upper, one I found for $125, and you can go to another website and it's $200, okay, for the same thing. Or you find somebody had a flash sale, this assembled, sight and forward assist was $180, but you have to watch out, because always get the barrel first. Some of them have M4 feed ramps, some of them don't. And also your uppers. The one place that was pretty reasonable asked you, what upper do you want? Do you want it with just standard feed ramps or the M4s, depending on what barrel you're getting? Okay, see, this is another sticking point. You got to be careful. And you could piece together, and if you had spare parts, see, that's another thing. I got all kinds. I got safety selectors, bolt catches, magazine releases, the pins and stuff. I got a couple spare safety levers. So with just a few parts and a fire control group, I can complete a lower fairly easily. So that was my next build, and I'll go over it for you guys that are watching. But you can assemble yourself some sort of a retro gun and save a considerable amount of money if you really don't want to go that deep into the retro. In other words, you can build a nice rifle looking like this with the flash hider and everything on a $60 strip lower. And it doesn't say, government property or whatever. It saves you. It's the difference between the lowers is you can get one, say, for $60 as compared to $160. Okay? So that's a C note you got in your pocket to put towards something else, barrel, whatever. Or you don't necessarily have to get a chrome line barrel. I know that there's pencil barrels that are not chrome line. The problem with any of the build is finding the pencil barrels. I've seen places that have built them on their version of the rifle, non-chrome line, usually a 1 in 7 twist or something, and that will lower the cost if you go that route. But where to get one right offhand, I don't know. You know, I go to PSA and I get the barrel assemblies there. I'm not quite sure who makes them. They are marked H&R, and they give you the twist rate and state that they're chrome lined on them. So, you know, you do have choices, and you don't have to go 100% that way. You know, it's like a dissipator. I think they have a dissipator that's either A2 or the one with the detachable carry handle or something PSA has. And if you just want a dissipator, but it will have a heavy barrel. Okay, that's the only difference. You can get one of them for 600 units, you know. And basically it looks the same. It's a dissipator. You get it with a rifle setup stock and that. And, you know, that's considerable, because I don't think anybody makes a 605 dissipator. That B&K does make one, but it's over a K. You know, it's over a K, and the barrel is like 300 units, and it's black. See, I want to get one in the gray. See, that's another thing. If you want to do it in the gray and get it and do this and do it with the correct lower and all this other stuff, it's going to cost you. Alright? But, you know, that's the way that goes. So yeah, putting one together, there's a lot of options, a lot of room. You can use spare parts you have or stuff that's been lying around. You know, you don't have to get 100%. And you can get something that shoots good and looks cool, okay, without having to break the bank or get up there into that 1K level. You know, you can get away with it for less if you shop around, watch what you're doing, pay attention, and have some experience in assembling an AR. You can do it for considerably less money and have a cool gun to go and shoot. All right, thank you.